Today joining us on The Vault is Rick Brown, the director of the Veterans Business Outreach Center here at Big Sky Economic Development.
The following is a Big Sky Economic Development production.
It's Mars B.
And Kavo.
And this is The Vault at 201 North Broadway.
A business podcast.
Where we bring you entrepreneurs, small business owners, and community leaders of Montana.
To share their stories, expertise, industry insights, and strategies.
And we are sharing them all with you every single week.
You don't want to miss this.
Learn how to better start, manage, and grow your business.
And your leadership style.
Tangible takeaways to save you time and improve whatever it is that you're working on.
You're listening to The Vault.
Thank you to the Small Business Development Center for sponsoring The Vault at 201 North Broadway. The Small Business Development Center offers free personalized support from business plans to financial projections and beyond, empowering small businesses to thrive. Reach out to us at bigsky.economicdevelopment.org.
Rick, welcome. We're delighted and excited to have you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
We're excited to talk to you today about your career and really how you got to Montana and to get to work with us, which we're really excited we get to work with you. So we just thought we would start today with really the Rick story of where did you grow up and what was your upbringing like?
That's a good question. I was born in Louisville, Kentucky.
Ooh. You don't have an accent, so.
That's because 6 weeks later we moved away. And I didn't have a choice on that. So I was raised pretty much in the Midwest, Indiana, back to Kentucky a couple of times, but we moved around a lot. I think my father might have had something going on because we were one step ahead of the law, maybe. No, he had just different, he was in the car business. So we moved around a lot. And then went to about 4 or 5 different schools and ended up getting my draft notice when we moved back to Louisville. So I left again. So my accent is rather flat. A funny story. When I was in Africa, I was in Zambia, and I was talking to the police chief and in Lusaka. And we talked for a while, and Zambia used to be a British colony, and they had, gotten their independence just maybe 10 years before. But I was talking to him, and he kind of turned his head to the side while I was talking to him, and he said, your English isn't that good. And I wasn't quite sure what to do with that. So, but anyway, go ahead.
No, wait. So you talk about Africa, you got drafted, and then you just kind of left us on a little bit of a cliffhanger. So
yes.
Can you tell us talk to us about that? Because it's just different than, obviously we're female, so that draft is nothing.
What was it like getting your draft letter?
And then
it wasn't a letter. It was actually a telegram in those days, and it started with greetings, and I wish I had held on to it, but
you memorized it.
Well, actually, I don't. I wish I never found it or saw it. But anyway, at the time, the United States was a different place, and it was towards the end of the Vietnam War, and it had a lottery. So it wasn't everybody getting drafted and sifting through all of those people. It was a lottery where at the beginning of the year, they just threw in 365, balls into a bin, and then each one had a date. And mine was 53. And my brother, he had been 2 years before me, but he never got called up. But
you did.
I did. I was lucky. But
I won the lottery.
Yeah, I won
something like that.
That and a cow are the only 2 things I ever won.
Did you really win a cow?
Yeah. My mother was still carrying me around, and we went to some market or an event of some sort, and they called my name, and I remember my mother going, "No, they didn't. They didn't call your name." She didn't know what to do with a calf either. So,
so what did you do?
Put it on the farm next door.
And you just were like, "You're welcome."
Well, actually, I named the cow Rosie.
Oh.
Yeah. But she didn't care for me.
Oh.
Yeah.
Dang it.
Yeah. What do you do?
I don't know. I'm like, my brother has like cows too, and they're more like pets, I feel like sometimes, than cows. But okay, so you get drafted.
Yeah. Well, actually, I was being drafted, and at the time, my sister and brother-in-law were in the Air Force. My brother was in the Navy. And
Your sister and brother-in-law.
Sister and brother-in-law were
Okay.
in the Air Force, and my brother was in the Navy. And he was 10 years older than I. He had done 2 tours in Vietnam.
Wow.
So it was a long war because I was still being pulled in. Anyway, I knew I didn't want to be on a ship because I just
You grew up in the Midwest.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, why?
Landlocked.
Really?
I get motion sick, so that would be like...
Oh, well,
But you do something that gets you even more. But wait, so what was the draw for your siblings, and then you did it too, to go into the military? Was it just kind of the thing to do at the time?
It's my uncle went up through Italy in World War II. My father was in the Army, where they had gotten drafted. And it was kind of funny. It was when I was at university, and I was teaching. This was just, like 15 years ago or so. And I was in charge of the veteran events there. And we had this little thing where it said, if you had any members of your family in the military, you got to put a little flag up. So I said, okay. And I was thinking, well, I don't have any family. Well, and then I started thinking it was 2 of my brothers, my sister. It was Air Force, Navy, and Army. And brother-in-law, I had all the branches represented, my father, my uncle. So it really was something you just did.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to it, I was working in a grocery store like a lot of people, just started working when I was, younger, paper routes and all that stuff. But I was working in a grocery store, and over the time I was there, a few friends would get drafted and go over and come back, and some of them ran to Canada. And when I got my notice, they said, "Oh, come on with us. We're going to Canada." And it was just something that you didn't do because the way I was raised, it's our country, and we don't have to agree with everything that goes on, but we have a responsibility. Mm-hmm. So that's why I went in.
And where'd that take you?
At least to Africa.
And so you get drafted, you get the note, but then does it come with like an assignment?
Well,
Probably boot camp, right?
well, yeah,
Which is like an assignment,
yeah,
a little
well,
bit.
yeah,
kinda?
sure. Well, it's what everybody has to do.
Lack of sugar.
Yeah. So I decided, because talking to my brother-in-law and my sister, that the Navy and the Air Force had the best schools. And if you put yourself in my mindset at that time, it was a lot of people getting, shot up, coming back or not coming back. And you're at an age where it's like, I got to make a decision on whether or not I put myself in that situation. So,
How old were you at the time?
I was, you got your draft notice at 18.
Okay.
Yeah. So, so I'm playing with that in my head the whole time, and that's affecting what I'm trying to do to continue in your life, because you're looking at, well, I may get pulled out, and that's the end of it as I know it. And I was watching my friends come back from Vietnam and changes and things like that. So it really screws up your head as far as looking at the future. So anyway, I was screwing around, not doing extremely well in school. There's an aside.
That surprises me, but okay.
Well, I did very well in certain areas, but I was actually in university on a art scholarship.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, I got over that. But anyway, I couldn't decide what I wanted to do. And to go back to your point, I decided, well, I'm going to try the Air Force because they have good schools, and I'll at least learn something before. So I went to the Air Force recruiter, and they gave you a battery of tests. And I said, thank God, I'm finally going to see what I'm good at. They came back and said, well, whatever you want.
Dang it.
You're like, I was really hoping you'd make that decision.
Yeah. So it was all over the place. So I went to basic, and I even forgot what I chose. I think translator or something. I got into basic, and that was a fun experience because I remember waking up the first day. We got in 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and here comes the DI the next morning, TI in the Air Force, and banging on the garbage can just like in the movies. Wake up, get out of bed. And I was on the top bunk, and the lights flashed on and everything. And I'm going, wow, this is just like the movies. and it went downhill from there.
So it met your expectation, and then...
Sadly, it did. So, but when I was finishing up basic, there was this DCA, Defense Communications Agency, that had they just come down periodically and go through everyone's records that are on base. So I happened to be there, and just luck of the draw, they called me in, and they asked if I wanted to go there, and I said, sure, why not? So I ended up not going to where I thought I was going, and I ended up in Washington, D.C. In a Joint Service Command. However, it was basically run by the Army. It was the Defense Communications Agency. That's gone now. But the agency within that agency was the White House Communications Agency. So that's where I was. That still exists.
And what were you doing there?
Whatever they told me to do.
Yeah, but what was that like? I mean, we want some details here.
Yeah, it was being in the basement. You just did your job. We were on the grounds. Over the time I was there for 10 years or so because I did 7 in the military, and then I went into the Secret Service. So I was always within spitting distance
of the White House.
Yeah,
is what you're talking about. In the basement of the White House or whatever.
Wherever, yeah.
In the basement, doing the job, quote unquote.
Well, no, it was pretty simple. There was nothing crazy about it. It was at first I was the specialty within the Air Force was ground radio, and what you did with that was support the Secret Service and whatever they did, and also.
Do you know Morse code?
I may have met him one time, but no. I actually no, I don't. And if you've ever go to a museum in Washington and really listen to what those guys could interpret as far as those dots and dashes went.
It's insane.
It is. It's it sounded like a buzz sound to me.
And they're getting messages out of it, and wow.
So, but anyway, I used to know semaphore. Does that help?
I don't know what that is.
I don't know what that is. Give us an example.
The flags. Alphabet with flags. That's what the Navy used for so long. That's why that existed, pretty much.
Oh.
We should start sending each other codes.
We should just raise a flag, and then we can...
Well, you need 2 flags, and it's
she would have one, I would have... like that.
You create the alphabet with
got it.
Right.
Yeah.
And
I need flags.
I don't know if that's for Kayla and I, but...
Well, it's not in big demand anymore.
Yeah.
Hey, we're
secondary career.
We can bring it back, like the fanny packs.
Okay, so you were working in the White House. You were working in D.C. Did you for 10 years?
Yeah, I was there.
There were 7 for the first part, right?
Right. I went in and I got there as Nixon was facing Watergate.
Wow.
So.
What? Oh my God.
Would you like to elaborate on that, Rick? Or just that experience of what was it like to live in D.C. at that time?
Oh, D.C. was crazy. I mean, I remember one time where we were on the grounds and there was a riot going on or a demonstration. No, it was a demonstration, wasn't a riot. And they were concerned about it. So the thing you wouldn't think about is you take city buses and put them nose to tail. And those flat faces and flat backs really limits the ability of anybody to cross over. So they did that. And also I learned that horses are great with demonstration or people control, because if you're on a motorcycle or a car, you really have brakes and you're expected to get hit or whatever. You can't talk to a horse. That's 1,000 pounds that's going to turn around on you and push you over. So
Yeah.
they're great in those situations.
Were you living close to the White House? Because I'm assuming you were there like day in and day out, kind of, right?
Yeah. The job, though, was pretty much on the road also. So, there were some years that I was on the road out of town more than in town. Mm-hmm. And so you always had a bag packed. You flew, commercial sometimes, but a lot of times in C-130s or C-141s, they retired the 141s, but cargo planes, that was a lot of time in a web seat.
Was it loud? Were cargo planes pretty loud when you sit into it?
No, it does damage your hearing. And as the low man on the totem pole when I first went in, there were occasions, and it wasn't on a cargo plane, but they were very loud in the back. But I remember being on Sikorsky in the Philippines, in Manila, and I was low man on the totem pole there, and they had no headphones for me like we're using now, where you can hear each other and you block out the outside noise. So the loadmaster at one point was yelling. We had the door to the outside open and everything, and he was yelling in my ear, and I remember that was when I felt just pain in that ear. And he got right up my ear. I could not understand a word he said, but I felt the pain. It was just that loud.
Really loud. So you traveled all over then with this, internationally.
Yes.
And then so you're traveling, you're in these planes. What's your role with that? Because you said you were kind of aiding the Secret Service, but I don't really know what that fully means. And then if you're traveling all over, is it you're traveling along wherever the president's going, or what does that look like?
The Secret Service, the rule was, at least in the late 1800s when I was there, that was the rule was that to protect the president, vice president, first family, and whomever designated by the president. So that's how Henry Kissinger got Secret Service protection. He got it when he was in the national security director, but Nixon made him Secretary of State, and he didn't want to go to their security. So his wife was covered by their security, and Secret Service covered him. So we had some interesting interactions between the two agencies trying to do our jobs. Mm-hmm. So,
and then what led you to transition into the Secret Service?
They asked.
And you just
say
no.
Sure.
But when you were in the Secret Service, this might be a dumb question, but were you still active in the Air Force, or were you?
No, transition out of that, go into government employment. But the interesting thing is that with the job, I was already transitioning in a lot of ways, going to different schools. My expertise became countermeasures. We'll leave it that way. But that would mean any person creating that envelope that would go around with the protectee. Mm-hmm. I was not the one that was the last line of defense, as they say, throw themselves. I was more making sure that, nobody involved, no one trying to blow anything up, that type of stuff.
And how big is that Secret Service crew?
I have no idea. Oh, you mean?
I mean, just how many
the details? How many people go on each trip?
Or just in general, how many? Because that's a lot of jobs too. And I don't think. I mean, you're like, oh, I got asked, but you don't just get asked if you're not doing all these other things. I'm assuming it's a pretty hard area to get into.
Well, I guess not, because they took me. But to go back over it, the team size and everything varied with the protectee, and your level of concern would be determined that way. Because gosh, I was around when Truman's wife, Bess, was still alive. She never left her house, or the town. But I got to meet a lot of interesting people, and going back to what you said of different places, the only continent besides the two poles, that I didn't get to was Australia.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. Have you been there since?
No, I'm not going unless somebody pays me. It's a long flight.
It is a really long flight.
Yeah, it's not Australia as much as New Zealand because it's beautiful.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah. So one of these days.
And what were some of your favorite parts, like in that part of your life that you like learned from, you got to do, like that really stand out to you today?
Yeah. What experiences really shaped you?
Well, a lack of experience shaped me as the I forget what movie it was, The Bodyguard, where he was formerly the Secret Service. Yes, so you remember that. But they asked him one time, about losing anyone, and he says, "Not on my watch." So that was.
He didn't lose any money on his watch.
I didn't, not money, anybody. I did not lose anybody. There were quite a few things that stood out because when I was in, Ford was, there was an attempted assassination twice on him. There was Reagan, of course, got shot. And again, not on my watch, but I had worked those locations. One at the Hilton in Washington, D.C. on Connecticut Avenue. That thing was just a standard. Everybody knew that when we worked at various times. And it just wasn't my watch that day.
So you were guarding presidents.
And whomsoever designated. I ended up doing, Kissinger used to have what they called shuttle diplomacy between Israel and Egypt, and we did that quite a bit, and that's how I ended up in Africa. There was a detour, so I was there for about 2 months,
Wow.
3 months, 3 different countries.
And when you're there, where, like, are you on the embassy? Like, where are you at staying? Or are you just in it?
It depends. Could be a tent, and it could be a hotel. It just varied.
Just casually over. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But we had a little difficulty there, and there were always wrinkles, and things would happen that would throw you off. But those are a little bit too much of the inside stories. They're kind of funny, but.
Mm-hmm. And so when you were like in Africa for 2 months or whatever that looked like, just because I'm curious, like, what was your day? Like, would you all be on for like 12-hour kind of shifts? How many of you would be there? Like, what was your scheduling like when you were there?
Well, I won't really go to the detail of how many, people are there and what support. But the core advance would depend on the size and the importance, whether or not it was an overnighter or something that would last a few days or just a pop in and out. But your job was just basically preparing and making sure you did everything you could to create that envelope, and then for the individual to stay in that envelope until you left, and then past point of no return.
Mm-hmm. I love how you stated there was always wrinkles. It's such a great way to say, like, there's always things that come up. Yeah. In those high stress situations, how did you problem solve that?
With a piece of string and some twine.
Throw some spaghetti at the wall, see what sticks, right?
No, you just, you have to adapt, and that's the thing about the military and everything else. You're given a mission, and by God, you got to do that. But there were little wrinkles and big wrinkles. One of the little ones I remember was when you have a motorcade, there's a follow-up vehicle and there's advanced vehicles. And I was in one of the ones that was ahead, and I kept hearing on the radio that somebody was trying to pass a local because there was also other vehicles, and they were trying to get in between the follow-up and the limo, and they didn't make that, but they were running over chickens.
But you kind of have to be like, because you have to stay, unless I'm mistaken, in those like motorcade situations.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
those drivers too,
yeah.
like impeccable driving, because you're staying in formation, you're following, you're listening, and like you're like reacting like on the spot.
Well, not only are you doing that forward, but you're also making sure nothing's coming up behind you. So yeah, there's particular schools for that type of driving.
Did you get to go to one of those schools?
I went to a lot of different schools. The ones I enjoyed were interesting also.
We need to do a field trip.
Interesting.
Where you
also
can drive us crazy.
So Rick, you were with that for 10 years total, right? In DC. Where'd you go next, and kind of what pulled you, and where'd you go? Why'd you go?
Yeah. What was the progression for you?
The progression was pretty simple. One, I was getting older. Two, I had been on the road so much, I got divorced because of that. But, understandably, because I would be gone for periods of time, and you can never plan on anything. So you had no personal life, really. That caused me to start thinking. And the other thing is that, a couple of things. One is I always was thinking too much, and I liked getting educations, things like that. And I just wanted to do that. Didn't know where I was going, but I felt that I wasn't going to be good at being in a government position as I got older. And then also the travel, and just the idea that you start, see, most times, and this is one of the things I think the people that are not police officers, don't understand as clearly as having been in a situation where you are. It's not a combat situation that you have danger. It's any crowd, and you just have to make sure that it's a them and us type of situation. And the police go through this every day, and I have a respect for that, because you do tend to end up with a mental attitude of black and white, them and us. And I was developing that. And I thought, well, I don't want to go that way either. It's fine for some people, but not for me. So I got out. I still had the GI Bill, went to law school, decided I didn't
Where'd you go to law school?
University of Louisville. I went back because my parents stayed there and lived there. And so it was close enough that to my military career that I was able to get in-state tuition. Sad part about it is that when I took the exam to go to law school, in those days you had to supply the examination thing as far as the process went to pick your schools already. So there was one that I picked, which was Syracuse, oddly enough. And that one, because of their international law, and I had been to enough countries and lived in them enough that I was getting a pretty good feel for what the different cultures were. At least I was smart enough to know that I would never be other than an American. I, could understand, but I would never be anyone from anywhere else. So anyway, I got my first acceptance from Syracuse, and they said, yeah, you're accepted into the school. Please send $14,000. And I said, I don't have $14,000. So that one fell off. Then I decided, okay, I'll go where it's cheaper. And so anyway, I packed up all my stuff, and I did one more trip. And yes, my last trip was to Hawaii.
Oh,
it wasn't too bad. Oh, I went there so many times. I got deathly seasick on a Coast Guard cutter there, providing that envelope. But it was paralleling the coast, so the wave was sideways.
Oh.
And they said, soup's on down, below deck. I went down, and I came right back up after 1 minute.
I can. I'll take it up at the top. Thanks.
Yeah.
I was kayaking, and that happened to me, and I was like, I'm going to throw up. And the guy was like, just put your hands in the water, and it'll help you. I just need to get out of the ocean.
Yeah. It's kind of tricky. It is this idea of the best thing is to look at the horizon.
Yeah.
And I sailed for a while, so I rented like a 26-footer, and my brother was on it. He was from the Navy, right? He got seasick because of really choppy sea, but I didn't bother me at all because of the fact that I was anticipating each move and watching the horizon. So anyway.
So that's your tip for seasickness.
Yes.
Watch
I like
the horizon.
Watch the horizon. So you're pretty accomplished. I mean, you've mentioned that you've gone to law school, but you have some other degrees too.
Yes.
And you talked about the Hawaii. You were wrapping up a story.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
See, I digressed.
We're squirrels.
Good.
I got you.
Thanks, Marcel.
No, we're dogs and we see a squirrel.
Yes.
Squirrel. So, yes, I went to Hawaii. I got back and there was a letter of acceptance from Colorado.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And, of course, I'd put in for that because I'd skied. And that was another thing that, I was there from Nixon to Reagan.
Wow.
Yeah. And when Ford was in, that was one of those occasions that, you're always taught in the military, don't volunteer for anything. So somebody came in one day and said, anybody here know how to ski? And I thought for that minute or less than a minute and thinking, I don't see a downside to this one. Okay. Yes, I do. So I ended up going out there quite a bit. They would issue us season passes. We went out so much. And, interesting note, Larry Boondorf was the guy that prevented Squeaky Fromm's gun from going off because he put his hand in the revolver. As the hammer came down, it caught the fleshy part between the thumb and the forefinger. And anyway, he ended up in getting a nice assignment, if you will, in Colorado, and he handled all the, the stuff that went on in Vail, Beaver Creek. So I got to know him. Yeah, I got in trouble there one time.
In Colorado?
Yeah, I got mad at somebody, and they called back to D.C., and it came back to me through Larry, and that was the end of it. But you know how you get mad at somebody and you don't really know them, and I didn't know this guy, and it was one of those things where, do you know who I am? I said, I don't care, just going back and forth each other. And, after that, you're worried, oh, my God, everybody
Who was he?
Well, I was justified. But what I wasn't sure is, was that somebody that was really nice and I really was an asshole? And I was going around checking the post that night, and the guys, everyone I went up to was, hey, are you the one that was in that, argument? I said, yeah. And they said, oh, man, somebody had to do that. And I was, oh, God.
You're like,
God.
the validation I needed. Thank you so much.
I don't feel so bad about it now.
I feel justified by my words and actions.
Yeah. But the first person, I'm sorry, I've got, my picture of life is if you stick around long enough, you have a lot of stories, and you can only tell them for so long because then you get senile and you forget them all.
And then you tell them over and over.
Yeah. Did I tell you this already? No. So the reason I don't get upset too much by people yelling at me, playing off of that story, is that I was in the Oval Office one time doing some odds and ends, and nobody was in there. And I was down, on the ground, and I got tired of doing it because back and forth, and finally I just, put one cheek on this chair behind the desk, and Rosemary Woods came walking in just at that moment and said, get out of that chair, there's only one man that gets, and I really didn't think about it. I was stupid on my part, but I thought for sure I was going to Greenland. Oh, man. But, yeah. So, yeah, a lot of the fun experiences. People ask me, "Did you ever talk to any of the presidents?" Yeah, I used to hold the door and I'd say, "Good morning, Mr. President," and they'd say, "Get the hell on my way." Great conversations.
Service.
Don't sit on my chair again.
Yeah. No, I don't know if she told him or not, but yeah, Ford was the friendliest. He was a really nice guy. As far as friendly goes. And that was one of the things that it was always this situation of, no politics. You know, you were apolitical in that position. You just didn't get involved with that.
Well, yeah, because it does you no good there.
Well, the whole premise is that you're not protecting an individual, you're protecting the seat. And you can't let anything get in the way of that.
So you were then in Colorado and you went to law school there?
No, I went to Louisville.
Or Louisville, but then, so you did Louisville, sorry.
Right, yeah.
Then you moved to Colorado.
No.
I got it wrong.
I went East Coast for a little bit.
And We're out on the East Coast?
And then New York, Washington, D.C. And
what were you doing in those locations?
Oh, I decided that I was offered a job as a prosecutor at a Commonwealth Attorney's Office, and they offered me so much money. I said, "No, thank you. I can't live on that." So I never wanted to go into a large law firm. So I went started businesses and started doing that for a long time. And that got me through the business, the different types of business, and then consulting for businesses, and then helping them do their marketing plans and business plans. It prepared me for what I do now. And then I also, I was show you how life throws you little twists and turns. It's what's the expression? Life is what happens while you're busy making plans. So I went to Brazil for. They estimated 6 months for a company to open up the market there. 7 years later.
Wow. So you lived down there full time?
I lived there, but I would come back, like once a month for a few days. But I never learned Portuguese, but I did create my own language. They were called Rick Speak. They were polite enough to understand it. So.
And so what was the work you were doing down in Brazil?
I was working to help a medical dental company device enter that market. And
nice.
It was a injection system. And then one of the things I did down there was develop a marketing plan and was able to, pierce the market, and then also the largest sale out of a convention because of the approach that we took on the marketing, which was I always recognize, and that's the other degrees, I recognize the eco defenses are always there, and when you're marketing, you have to get past that eco defense, and one of the best ways to do it is to find another eco wish, and that if it trumps, that's where you go. So that's what we were able to do. Design.
For 7 years, wow.
Well, no,
but
that
you were
was
down
that
there.
market. I was down there, but it wasn't that company. And then I ran into Brazilian companies that wanted to come to the United States, and I got a lot of dental work done down there because it's cheap, high quality.
Nice and.
Oh yeah, I mean it's a wonderful country. It's just every country has their issues, and this one is. There's a disparity. You don't have slums. They don't call them that. But you've seen those wooden areas. It's just tin. Those are favelas, and even they say the police don't like to go in there because they have a rule of their own. But there's also a lot of people that live in the interior that they try, and that's what happens. Is they come to try to make some money because there's no possibility, and it's just a tough life for them. And
then, so kind of moving on, what brought you back into the U.S.? I'm guessing some contracts ended and.
Well, and I was I was thinking, look, I've been doing this for so many years, and nobody wrote me a check other than myself. Right? And so I was talking to my brother, who had gone back. He had gone to Japan, lived there for a while, San Francisco, New York. But he had decided to take a job in Louisville, a law firm. And
was he an attorney too?
Yeah. And so we're a bunch of overeducated people. I have some problem with that. I haven't gotten to the root of that one. But anyway.
You have an eagerness for learning.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say.
Curiosity.
Yeah.
I like answers. Yeah. But anyway, he said that, the university was looking for somebody. So I applied and I started teaching there. And there's not too many veterans in academia at a college level or university level. And I was walking down, shortly after I got there, I was walking down the hall and the provost passed me. He said, "Hey, weren't you in the military?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Oh, good. You're now in charge of all the veterans that are coming to school here because one of them just put their fist through the wall in the registrar's area." And I said, "Okay, no problem." So what that taught me, and that's the thing I think is important, is to always learn, and I had learned a lot and been exposed to a lot. So one thing I hadn't thought about was that the veterans coming back from Iraq, I'm sorry, not Iran, Iraq and Afghanistan, they, the technology and the approach to war had changed dramatically. You see pictures of people in the desert there, and you see pictures of people and guys in Vietnam. It's like totally different. Yeah, and it's evolved even more so. But one thing I found out is that there was an immediate connection in talking to these guys because boots on the ground is always the same. And if you had some exposure to combat, that and I had also been into the desert. I worked with the Mossad in Israel and the Philippines. I'd been through there, so I hated jungles. I hated humidity. I hated the sand. Montana.
Perfect.
There you go.
But you were in Utah right before you came here, and you hadn't lived in Montana yet.
No,
prior, right?
Well, I'd been through it, and I always wanted to get here.
Right, but you hadn't lived here yet.
No.
Yeah.
I ended up, just deciding that, happy feet. I just kept moving. I find that if you take 2 slices of bologna and put it in your shoes, you really start moving her. So that's my key to dancing also.
And so along the way, when was it that you got some of those because you have a PhD, right, in psychology? Mm-hmm. Where did you get that? And in your timeline, was that pre or post law school?
That was a low residency that it was in Saybrook, which is I
don't know where that is.
In San Francisco. Okay. And that school was humanistic. So, and that fit with me because it was everything is behavioral. There's, you have to have room. And it allowed me to be conservative, but also to not, live totally by the APA rules in determining what I thought was the best approach. So I did that, and I was lucky enough to have the chair of my dissertation. He was at Harvard.
Wow.
And he had gotten some interesting awards from the APA for humanistic psychology, and he was the world authority on William James, who was one of the first ones. He wrote a 2-volume books or tome on psychology as it was just being developed. So anyway, with him, I ended up twisting the dissertation, and it ended up the NASA Harvard archives as philosophy of physics. So it ended up being something dealing with quantum theory.
Wow.
The advent of quantum theory and how that was not questioned by the uncertainty, if you will, was not questioned by the in that community. But there were certain ones that were afraid of that. The people that came up with the theory. So,
Wow.
I have a question in a little bit different topic. Back to your time.
oh, good Lord, thank God it wasn't drugs. Go ahead.
Let's talk about that. So here you are put in that position of helping these veterans that have just seen different kind of combat.
Yeah.
What would you say, because we get a lot of people who listen for workforce, and then even just veterans that are looking to start their own business. As an employer, how can you make it a safe space for a veteran to come work for you? What are some things to be aware of, or changes that you can implement into your work, your employment, that could welcome those individuals? And then on the other hand, what would you say to veterans? Because I've assisted some people that they can't work with others. And in one case it was helping a person get their taxidermy certification, so then they work alone.
Yeah.
And they're really good at that. And so what would be those 2 tidbits that you would share?
I would say that not everyone in the military is a combat veteran or has been exposed to combat. So bear that in mind when you hire somebody. We did live in a different type of culture, because, you're taken care of, as far as the basic needs. You also were on duty 24 hours a day. You never were off, like you in the civilian world. So there is this focus and determination. So a lot of us, it's helpful to have specific responsibilities laid out and what we need to do and everything, but don't underestimate the skill sets, because the average person coming out of the military at 22 or 23 probably has had a minimum 4 to 6 people that they were managing. So you come out, but a lot of people in the military don't know how to translate that. There is assistance in a lot of different places, and we can we provide a list of that help translate resumes. So that's one aspect of it.
I love that. Don't underestimate their skill sets. Yeah.
And also, as far as understanding, there's there's a website that is extremely good. It has a ton of videos in there that teach employers. Well, it's different areas, but one of them, or a couple of them, is this idea of, what you should ask a veteran, what you shouldn't ask a veteran, what you should try to understand, and even an introduction to what it means to be an officer or enlisted, what the ranks are. I mean, you don't have to memorize that stuff, but to have an understanding, it makes the veteran feel better that you understand where they came from in a lot of their thinking. And it depends on how long they were in as to how difficult it is to come out sometimes, and also the experience in the military does it. As far as the ones that have issues, and which we all I think have issues. Just go back in a story. The first trip I did, we lost somebody on a helicopter. Just a simple thing that you could have been on it. It was like the first trip I went on. When I was in the military, and then other occasions, and things like that. So going back to that, don't assume that they have, but there are many that have been have had an experience where they've got some PTSD. As far as those that want to start their own businesses, it's the best thing that they can do, because they can move forward from that, and we can help them, because if they have that disability rating, which is all probability they will, there is this VRE, Veteran Resource and Employment, Veteran Readiness and Employment. That's what it is. And it used to be Voc Rehab, but they have a provision. One of the ways they can support veterans with a disability is providing them money to buy tools for starting their own business. And tools is loosely defined. So, and it's not chump change.
And I think that's a really good transition to, I mean, we talked a little bit about the Montana for you, but just touching a little bit on what do you do at the Veterans Business Outreach Center? I think kind of some of those technical things you do, but then from all of your experience, you've been all over the world. What is it about the job you currently have now that, because you seem very service oriented throughout your whole career, you're doing things like that are helping the greater good and bigger than you, bigger than all of us. So if you want to talk a little bit about both those things. We can start with the VBOC.
No, I mean, well, it all ties together. Yeah. It was the wake up call at Bellarmine University when they said, "Hey, you're in charge of the veterans." That I figured I could handle it, but I didn't know the connections that would be developed so quickly. It's since they were fresh coming back. I heard a lot of the stories. We shared stories, things you don't talk about. To others, quote, outsiders, but there's an expectation of, being able to talk with veterans. And I realized that, like I told you earlier, it's boots on the ground, same thing. Just discussing some of those things where you had this dark humor going on at the worst times. And there's also that other stuff. But anyway, it pulled me back in because prior to that, the Vietnam era, you did not want anybody to know you were in the military because the feeling from most of the country was, and this is a touchy subject to me in the sense that I believe that the military, the people in the military are mission oriented. And if you're given a mission, you do it.
Yeah, you execute, yeah.
Right. But the difference is that if you're against a particular conflict, the people in the military didn't choose that.
Yeah.
They're just acting on orders.
Right. So, and people say, well, you're against the military. No. So anyway, that was going on in the 70s, 60s, 70s. And so I hit it. The saving thing to me was just bumping into that provost. Because I realized, oh, wait a second. These guys are hurting the same as everybody else has, and it's still the same thing, and we're not doing enough. So I built that up. I started the veteran office there at Bellarmine, kept building it, and I found somebody that could take my place. And I said, I was looking around, and I saw Utah, and it is the only state that has basically a dedicated department for doing exactly what I could do. And that's why they hired me, is because, having this much business experience and the mission being to help veterans start their own business, it's a natural. I'd been teaching in the MBA program, business law, how to start businesses, acquisitions, project management, it touched on all of it. So getting down to your point, the final thing is the reason that I'm here and how I feel about it and why I am dedicated to it is that purpose can change over time. But we look for relevance. And this is the perfect place for me because I can do what I can do, which is may not be enough, never is, but it's something that I can help other veterans.
And I think that's really great. And it's kind of like, you might think it's not, but you're changing their lives. Like they'll remember you, like a training and interaction. And it's like, you're probably a very big pivotal moment for them. And a pivotal figure in their life where they're like, I did this training or I met with this guy named Rick and it really changed my life. So I think that you are in different ways, which is really great work that you guys get to do
Which
in a 3-state region, so Utah, Wyoming, and Montana.
Which I think is like super important, and just the impact that Marcel is touching on is here you have these individuals, and depending on how long they've been in the military, their transition looks completely different. So, versus one person who's been in 4 years compared to one person who's done it career-wise and is transitioning out at 20, that is a completely different transition stage, and you can help them through that and understanding the opportunities that they have with the skill sets that they've earned and learned throughout their years of service. So I just holler at Rick to start a business.
And it's been so fun to have you and just hear more of your story. We like to end each of our episodes with 3 rapid fire questions, but before we get into those, we'll hear a quick message from a sponsor. Thank you to Big Sky Economic Development for supporting The Vault at 201 North Broadway. Big Sky Economic Development provides leadership and resources for business creation, expansion, retention, new business recruitment, community development, and workforce development. Learn more at bigsky.economicdevelopment.org. Rick, thanks for being here with us today. So like I said, we like to end each episode with 3 rapid fire questions. So my first one is, what's been one of your favorite places that you visited in the world?
Norway.
And why? Ooh. You knew it right off the top. I love it.
I did. I like the cold. I like the mountains.
Did you ski there?
No, I did not.
Okay.
I did train with some Norwegian troops and some Americans also, but that's another story. Yeah, it's just gorgeous there. It's absolutely gorgeous, and the fjords and the quality of life I think is really good there. But a lot of people wouldn't be able to handle it because in the sun will come up around 11 and during the winter and go down by 3. But wow. I may have changed my mind if I ever get to New Zealand, but Norway's always been up there.
Wow. Okay. I love how quickly you answered that. I'll add that to my travel list of places to go.
You should. There's a train ride between Bergen and Oslo that is unbelievable.
Oh, I would love that. I like trains.
Yeah.
My question for you is, what is the best business tip that you could give to somebody who's looking to start or who's already in business?
I would say that it takes guts and stubbornness to build and grow a business, commitment to your idea. But the thing that is the most difficult is being open to what your customer wants, talking to the customer before you go out there and say, hey, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. You're going to love it, and selling it.
Yeah.
Because you waste a lot of money that way, and you can get a lot of good information by just talking to enough of your targets and not to your family and friends.
Love that.
So I've the last one. It's a kind of a little bit along the advice, but what's some of the best advice you've received that's really stuck with you?
Don't put your head above the foxhole. No. Let's see. The best advice that I've gotten. Oh, yeah, I can come back. When I was in the Secret Service, I was talking to one of the other guys, and we were talking about something, and or somebody said that's not fair, and he said, "Get over it. Life's not fair. You should have lost that argument in 3rd grade." So, it's not fair. It's not all sunny and everything, but just always keeping your head and your focus of where you want to be. Yeah, it's tolerable.
I like that. Well, thank you, Rick. Thanks for joining us on The Vault. We've enjoyed having you, and we'll definitely have you back to talk more about the VBOC and all the service and great things that you guys do.
Awesome.
I appreciate it.
And if anybody is listening and wanted to get in contact with Rick or Justin on our VBOC team, you can get in touch with them at our Big Sky Economic Development.org website. There is the VBOC, Veterans Business Outreach Center link there. And then we just want to end the episode by thank you for your service.
Oh, that was another one that, you didn't get 4 years. First time I was thanked was only about 15 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And it was a neighbor, and I didn't know what to do with it. But I was talking to another Vietnam vet. I was giving a speech, and he came up afterwards, and he said, I've got the perfect answer. It was an honor and a privilege.
We hope you enjoyed this episode.
Make sure you are subscribed to The Vault at 201 North Broadway, wherever you podcast, including YouTube.
Connect with us on Facebook at The Vault at 201 North Broadway and Instagram at The Vault_201.
Don't forget to visit us at thevault@201.com and subscribe to our newsletter.
We will see you next time.
Bye.